Coming to you pre-recorded at Purple Studio, it's the podcast that talks about board games, the board gaming hobby, and how to become a social pariah to your friends. It's Boxfart! Now welcome your hosts for today's show, Red and Blue!
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Red.
I'm Blue.
And we're back from our holiday vacation. Blue, tell us, how was your vacation?
I had a great little holiday stint. We had a nice Christmas party, and I did something that I thought was interesting, especially for our board game hobby. I work with a lot of people who don't play board games regularly, but they've engaged in board games with me, which is fantastic. And so I decided for our White Elephant, I was going to get a board game. So I decided to get a game called Lacuna by CMYK Games. I'm sure you played that one, right?
I have not.
You haven't played Lacuna?
No.
Great positional abstract. You have this cylinder that you shake all of these flowers onto a beautiful mat, and then you have to place pieces in between and claim all the flowers.
You know, I've not played it. Mm-hmm. I watched you play with Shamrock one time.
Cool. Yes.
And even just watching it, it was pretty apparent how the game worked. Mm-hmm. And I think that it would be a fun game to try.
So here's what I did. On the day of the Secret Santa, I brought it in and set it up. Just set it up. It's a very quick game to set up. It's fun to watch people set it up, genuinely. So I set it up. And then I had one of my coworkers who doesn't usually play board games. We do have coworkers that play board games. Salmon and Fuchsia are the two that we have. But other coworkers that don't usually play board games sat down, learned the rules in the 30 seconds it takes to explain them, and played a game. I played with two different people before Secret Santa. Then when my gift got picked during not Secret Santa's, the White Elephant, when my gift got picked, people had already seen it played, they already knew how to play it, and they could be like, oh, that's something I actually know how to use. It's not just a board game like people would be, oh, I don't want to use that, I don't have to learn the rules. You already learned the rules. So everybody in that room already knew how to play that game. I thought it was kind of an interesting way. My boss ended up getting it, and he couldn't have been more excited because he had just played it, and he was like, oh, I'm going to play this tonight! And it just greased the wheels of getting new people into the hobby.
That is an awesome thing to do, and as you say, I think it seems like a great way to introduce people into a hobby that is so welcoming as it is. So, good for you. Yeah.
The other one that I just got today was from my good friend Red here. He bought me a copy of a game that I've wanted to play for a long time. I can't remember the full name of it. It's Brian Boru. It's like a trick-taking game and a dudes on a map game, or meeples on a map, I should say, game. Very excited to try it. Beautiful artwork too.
Yeah, it's Osprey Games, I believe, and the box and the art look beautiful, so I'm sure we'll play that together at some point.
I think it might be the same person that made The King is Dead, but I could be wrong about that.
Is it Sylvester something?
Yeah, Pierre Sylvester.
Yeah, I think that is who it is.
I'm very excited to try it.
Yeah. My holiday was great as well. I similarly had a company Christmas party get-together. We did something that I thought was a lot of fun. We did a murder mystery dinner party. So we all went to the location. There was a whole I'll call it a theatrical crew. I don't really know what else to call it. And they laid out this whole murder mystery thing with one of the patrons being killed during the dinner session, and multiple different people that were in the crowd all got specific roles to play, and then everyone else were detectives trying to figure it out. So it was a great time.
That sounds awesome. And did you do that on the Delta King?
It was on the Delta King.
Yes.
It was a really great time. That's an old steam paddle boat that's been converted into a restaurant, hotel, event space, basically.
I don't think we've mentioned it before, but we live in Sacramento, California, the capital of California, and there are so many awesome things here. There's a lot of really good, friendly local game stores as well. But the Delta King, that's a staple. It's in old Sacramento. It's welded to the thing. I think the Delta Queen still sails. I had my junior prom on that.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe my senior prom. No, it was my senior prom. It was a senior prom. Yeah, I did one of those before. It did not turn out well when I went. I'm glad it sounds like it went well for you. And it was many years ago that I did it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but yeah, it was a good time. It's not like the Delta King people. It's a third-party company that does the murder mysteries at that location. So I'm not sure if it's a different company or whatever, but it was a good time.
Great. Very nice.
This week we're going to talk about the games that we played, followed up by our board game standoff between two single-player cooperative powerhouses, Robinson Crusoe and Spirit Island. Then we're going to do our main topic for the week, which is going to be digital implementations of games. And then lastly, Blue, we're going to end with our classic segment, Does It Fart?
Oh, I'm very excited for this one. Because this is the biggest box we've had on Boxfart so far, and I'm pretty excited for this.
It should be great.
Yes, it should. So, Red, what'd you play this week?
So, Mint and I actually did 2 full campaign runs of Slay the Spire, the board game, by Gary Dworsky, Anthony Giovanetti, and Casey Yano, published by Contention Games.
When you say full run, are you saying acts 1, 2, and 3?
We spent about 4 hours last night.
Oh my goodness.
To play. We did the whole game, acts 1, 2, and 3 on Ascension level 2, so we're going to be playing Ascension level 3 moving forward. The first campaign that we did, we died to the act 2 boss. So we wanted to try it again. And it is all new sleeves, and they work perfect. The game comes with sleeves that are branded for the game, and they're good. They're not great. So after having played it for a dozen or so sessions, the corners start to fold over and split a little bit. So we decided to re-sleeve everything, and it worked perfect.
It's interesting you were bringing up Slay the Spire, because I have something I played this week that I have similar ideas about. You're talking about the fact that you put sleeves on. Slay the Spire, you have to put sleeves on. You can't play that game without sleeved cards.
Correct.
Because the other side of your player cards all are the upgraded side.
Exactly. Yeah, there's some double-sided cards, so you have to be able to only see one of them at a time, one of the sides at a time.
Yeah. Really like Slay the Spire. Always fun when we play it. I had some friends come over that I don't think they're board game people, but they've been playing the board game with some other friends. They saw it on the shelf and commented on it. It was really cool to see it getting to a larger audience, especially being a video game that turned into a thing. We've talked about it before.
What I am looking forward to is, as you mentioned, it is based upon a video game, but the Slay the Spire 2 is being kind of promoted and everything. I'm very much looking forward to that second version.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first game I played was with my coworker, Fuchsia. We played a game called Santorini. Santorini is one of the best abstract puzzlers out there. Again, it is so easy to teach. That is a game that I can play with just anybody. It's so easy to explain the rules. After one game of tripping over their feet, they just get it, and then you're off to the races. And all of a sudden, a person that was completely unfamiliar with this game can become very good in the second game after they understand how, you can do that now, It was a really good, very quick game. I think we played 3 times in a row, just on my phone. I didn't have the physical copy with me, but I do have the physical copy. I'd like to try the New York variant at some point.
I wasn't aware there was a New York variant.
Yeah.
Santorini, as you say, Blue, is a positional abstract game. And we've obviously talked about other positional abstracts in previous weeks. I think Santorini stands above them. Santorini is so good. It not only deals with your position on the 5x5, 6x6, 5x5 grid, but it's not only about your physical position, but it adds verticality as well, because you're constructing these buildings, and ultimately you're trying to get to the top of the building, and whoever gets there first wins. So it adds this vertical kind of, I'm going to say, dominance aspect to the game between you and your opponents.
That was Santorini by Gord, put out by Roxley.
The next game that I played this week was Wingspan, just the base game. I was able to get a secondhand copy for just a few bucks, so I played it. I've actually played the digital implementation many, many times. This was just the base game. I played it with Mint for the first time, and we had a great time. I definitely think that the expansions add some much needed new cards and new kind of goals to go for. But the base game is fun. Mint had a good time, and I think we're going to end up picking up one of the European expansion to kind of round out some of the rough edges.
They have a lot of expansions for that now, too. As far, I don't really like tableau builders. The only tableau builders I've really been drawn to are the core Thomas Lehman Race for the Galaxy and Res Arcana. I can't think of many other tableau builders. Haven't played Terraforming Mars. I'm told that that's an incredible game that looks, very interesting.
The game that when I was explaining it to Mint, the game that I referenced was Nar. Because of how when you activate a row or a column in Nar, you get all of your other cards bonuses from that, from that column. And Wingspan has a very similar mechanic. And so I think that helped, at least with that aspect of the game.
I played Wingspan once. I did not like it, but I'm perfectly happy to try it again.
Awesome.
Yep.
This week I played Wingspan by Elizabeth Hargrave, published by Stonemaier Games.
I will say it's great to see women represented in the design space. I didn't care for Wingspan, but I am very glad to see more and more women out there. Next game on my list. Speaking of tableau builders that I love, I did play Res Arcana with Fuchsia. We had some downtime at lunch, and I got to introduce him to Res Arcana Duo. I am finding that Duo is the perfect entry point because it limits decisions. The cards are balanced so that they're all together, and it's a very focused amount. And then once you do that, you release them onto the full world, right? It reminds me of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know you haven't played any Zelda games, but the beginning of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you start out on this great plateau, and you can't get off the plateau until you've done everything that you're supposed to do on there, right? Then you can go off. That's what it feels like with Res Arcana Duo. It's an onboarding thing. It's very limited in scope, but it's very balanced so that when you introduce them to the full game, they have a very good foundation on which to, now you can attack other players, and now there's dragons and beasts and all that kind of stuff that are more pertinent. Great game.
Yeah, absolutely. I picked up a copy of Res Arcana Duo as well, and we were talking about our holiday games that we got and played, and Blue, I'll have you know, I bought Res Arcana Duo for you because you mentioned it a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah, and I
Wait, I remember texting you that I had gotten Res Arcana Duo and I played it and I really enjoyed it, and then you just were silent. Yes. You went radio silent for a while.
That's a problem that we've had sometimes, is being very excited about games and then picking them up. That's obviously, we're all adults and we can do that. So now I have a fantastic copy of Res Arcana Duo, and Mint and I have played it several times, and it really is a good game. And as you said, Mint has never played it before, and it was a great entry point to the franchise.
Hopefully more people will pick it up. I know that with the Splendor Duo and what is it, Takedo Duo, they're all coming out with all these 2-player variants of games. That one remains a very good one. It feels exactly like the original game. It doesn't feel like a Duo version. It just feels like a small subset. Like, you could go into the full game of Res Arcana, take out 4 mages and 16 cards and play the game, but there's so much more cards that you could find, I don't think they would be nearly as balanced as a tight 16 card artifact deck the way that it does in Res Arcana Duo. And that was Res Arcana, and we also played Res Arcana with the Luxet Tenebrae expansion by Thomas Lehman, put out by Sandcastle Games.
The last game that I played this week was Root, designed by Cole Worley, published by Leader Games. I played this in anticipation and almost research for our main topic this week, because I did play the digital implementation of Root. They have released it on Steam, on the mobile phone, on the Switch even, I think, and there's so many different versions or distributions of it.
Emerald and I have played on Steam many times. I'm sorry, on Switch many times.
Yeah. And one thing I have to say, while Root isn't my favorite game, I've played the physical version many times with lots of the expansions and stuff. Root is not my favorite game, but dang, those digital implementations are very well done. I don't think I've seen a bug or anything like that in any of them. A lot of times, specifically like phone app implementations can have some issues. This one has been perfect.
I think that is the bar that you set digital implementations of board games, genuinely.
Absolutely. Root is an asymmetric...
Who'd you play?
I played as the Marquita Cat.
Ugh, why?
I don't know. I don't play that one that often. Typically the one that I play the most and do the best at is the Eerie dynasties.
You are
exactly.
good at the Eerie, yeah.
But I'm not particularly good at the game in general, I don't think. But I did play as the Marquita Cat and played against some anonymous online people.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it was a good time. I did not win, but that's okay.
Fair enough. I really like Woodland Alliance. That is my absolute preferred faction. The Vagabond has been banned in our game group.
Yeah, it's just so different. And then, it's an asymmetric game, but the birds are only slightly different than the moles, or only slightly different than this other faction. The Lord of the Hundreds or whatever. And then you've kind of got the less confrontational races like the Woodland Alliance or the COVID conspiracy.
The COVID conspiracy. The Corvid. Don't get us canceled. Oh my god.
The Corvid conspiracy. Yes. I mean, who knows? But
No. I'm not even gonna joke on this podcast. You're not gonna even talk about conspiracy.
All right.
There's the less confrontational factions.
Correct.
Like the Woodland Alliance. You have the Corvid conspiracy. Even the Otters, which is the capitalists, right?
Yeah.
I'm so bad. And Mint is so good.
Mint is very personable and was able to do the sales and the negotiation with the Otters fantastic. But what I was getting to was the Vagabond is so different. It's not similar at all to any of those existing ones. And as you say, it's been more or less banned from our games.
I'll always say, hey, can I play the Vagabond? And then Shamrock will look at me and go, no, you cannot play that. And I'll be like, all right. And then Emerald will play the Lizards. You like to play the Underground Duchy, or you like the Eerie.
Yep.
I do like the Cats. The Cats they feel like they're a very weak faction compared to the others, but Woodland Alliance, dude. I love that one so much.
The Woodland Alliance, it's one of those things where if you don't take out their what are those tokens called? They're like support tokens.
Yeah.
And you let them spread, the Woodland Alliance can become a powerhouse, because the thing with them is, it's dice roll combat, and typically the attacker always gets the higher die. But if you're going into combat against the Woodland Alliance, whether they're the attackers or the defenders, they get the better die. So,
well, I think that's one of the cool things about Root is that no matter who is attacking who, the person attacking rolls 2 dice. And the higher of the dice goes to the attacker, the lower goes to the defender. And if you're the Woodland Alliance, just as you say. I think I took out, one time we were playing with a friend who has yet to be named as a color. He had, I think, 12 marquee units, and he attacked a stronghold that I had, like 4 Mycin, or, the Woodland Alliance. I think I took out 9 of his cats because he just dedicated his entire turn to attacking and kept rolling 3 zeros. Insane.
Yeah. No, they're very, nuts. Very good.
Yeah, I very much like Root. If we're gonna dedicate time to an asymmetric game, there's pretty much 3. If I'm really thinking, there's 3. There's Sidereal, which we always have to relearn because we play it so infrequently. There's Root, that we know how to play, and so we're able to get it on the table pretty quickly. And then there's Dune, which is another.
Dune is
an event game.
Yeah,
we invite Sharpair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion. If we know he's going to be in town, we're like, hey, you want to spend 6 hours here? And he's like, yes, I do. Yeah. And then you and I will team up.
Well, I don't know. You and Sharpair have teamed up many a time.
Sharpair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion. How dare you?
Excuse me.
How dare you?
Sharpair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion. I apologize
You should apologize to Sharpair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion. All right, so the last game I played on this list is a brand new game. It just came out. It's called Behold Rome by Joe Clipful of Mythfield Games. We've talked about Imperium on this channel before, on this podcast before. I love Imperium. I like the way it feels. I like the card play and the way it uses deck building to create that mechanism. But more than anything else, I really like the theme. I'm not really into Civ builders all that much. Imperium, it's such a nice system that has so many opportunities. Well, I think this person, Joe Clipfell, decided to make an entire game that you could play in one hand that is the Roman faction from Imperium. But the cool thing is that in Imperium, you're always trying to get to the end game, right? The nice thing is that things go away. You get rid of Julius Caesar, you get rid of these different characters as you go through. They're a flash in the pan, and then they're gone into history. Behold Rome, you can choose how Rome ends based on how much you upgrade your system, right? Your nation. If you want to stay in a lower state, you can stay there and then just kind of, gear how your things go. If you have Mark Antony, you have lots of different paths to victory, and there's 4 different opponent factions you can go up against. I ordered the deluxe edition, which came with a tuck box, and it's got 2 rule books inside. It's smaller than a deck of cards. I think the entire game is 18 of those cards, but here's the thing. Every single card is 4 cards. You're only ever looking at the top half of one side of a card. So, there's a progress card that has progress 1, 2, 3, and 4, but then there's also you can get into aqueducts. That's the 3rd level, and then Roman roads is the 4th level, and they can be more powerful, but then again, you're throttled by if you're in a red nation or a blue nation, much like Imperium, where red is the more barbarian state versus the civilized or the empire state. Very interesting game.
Is it single player only?
Yes, it is. It is solo only. Again, you can play it on a plane where everything is in your hand the entire time. You don't have to put cards down. If you have a region that you've conquered, it sits at the back of your hand and sticks up a little bit. If you have a resource, you turn it 90 degrees to the right. You always know what you have, what you can spend, what you can afford, and then you have a hand of 5 cards using the actions on those cards to change things around. It's really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to playing it more.
I don't know if you can hear the absolute glee in Blue's voice, because just the way he's smiling and talking about this, he likes this game. In fact, you called me the other night at 11:30 p.m.
What? No. It was during work.
It was not during work.
I called you during work.
Maybe I was working at 11:30. I won't put that out of the...
I doubt that.
Well, I don't know. He called me. I felt like it was late. And just to say that, hey, I got this game, you need to look at it. You need to check it out. I went online, and as he said, there was digital version, or not digital version, a deluxe version and a standard edition. And I said, which one did you get? Not to be outdone by Blue. He said, I got the deluxe one. And I said, well, now I got to buy the deluxe one. I didn't. I'm going to play yours. But it does seem like a very interesting game.
It was a very cool game. Now we're going to move on to the next segment we're going to call Board Game Standoff. This is where we take 2 board games that are similar enough that we can pit them against each other as far as naming the pros and cons of each, and then give our take as to which one we prefer over the other. For me, it's not going to be a big surprise, unfortunately. So the 2 games this week are Robinson Crusoe by Ignacy Trzewiczek of Portal Games and Spirit Island by R. Eric Royce from Greater Than Games. Oh, man. All right, Red, give me your impressions of Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe is a single-player or cooperative survival game.
They're both just cooperative, which means you can play it solo, but I wouldn't call them solo games.
Okay. It's a survival game. You play as Robinson Crusoe. You play as you're trying to survive something. And the reason I say something is the game has so many different... what would you call events? Scenarios, yeah. Thank you. And what I think is honestly the coolest thing about it is there's however many included scenarios, but then there is a vast number of public created scenarios that are out there and can be, non-traditional. So one of them might be escape the volcano island or survive the volcano island, or I'm sure there's a dinosaurs one or something. They're all out there. King Kong,
capture
which
King
is
Kong.
Just so cool to me.
I really, really like the variety that comes with Robinson Crusoe, especially out the box. You've got enough content to keep you satisfied for quite a while, especially we're going to talk about in just a second how difficult the game is. You have to go into Robinson Crusoe with the mindset of, I could just get bodied very, very early and not be able to recover, and you have to accept that going in. You really do have to accept that. There are huge swings in luck. There are decisions you can make to mitigate that, but more than anything else, you are at the whim of some of the events in this game through no fault of your own. If you don't take risks, you're screwed. If you take too many risks, you're screwed. If you take the right amount of risks, you could be screwed. based on, how often you want to throw the dice, literally.
One thing that I quite enjoyed, I thought was a very cool mechanic or interesting, way that the game played out was the event cards. I might get an event card, stepped on a snake or something, right? And there's not necessarily an immediate effect to that card, but it's like, put this in your deck, and then when you draw it, well, then something bad is going to happen.
Yeah. That is a tough decision to make, because usually it'll be something like, oh, you can get a treasure and then put this into the event deck, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I want the treasure. You get a treasure. That's okay. But then 4 turns later, it turns up it's like, oh, you stole someone's treasure, and they're coming after you now, and you have to have your shelter all up to snuff, and oh my goodness, it's such a cool variety of actions in that game. I don't know we've ever played without Friday as a helper. I can't imagine playing that game. I'm sure there's ways to do it. The nice thing you mentioned was all the scenarios, and I've got the expanded book that came with the deluxe edition. I would not buy the deluxe edition myself. It has like a multi-tiered shelter and has individual standees for each character. That's not really necessary in that game. In fact, it almost seems like it would hamper that game. It's very nice to have just the discs that you can put on the spaces. Hey, I've got 2 people going to this. It makes it much more simple to see. Plus, that seems like they throw miniatures into everything for no reason. Discs work just fine, if not better. But the book itself is a spiral bound, stays open book. It has, 50 different scenarios of varying levels of difficulty.
Mind you, varying levels of difficulty, they're all hard. They are all difficult.
Yes, it's true.
But that's one thing that I actually really like about games, especially cooperative ones. If I'm playing a cooperative game where I'm not going to say, well, if I'm playing a cooperative game and I can't win, like I can't beat somebody else, I want the challenge of the game to be tough. That's just me. That might not be everyone's, speed, and that's okay. Then maybe this game's not for you if you want an easy, relaxing time. Because this is a little bit of a long game, and it's tough and gritty the whole time.
It's very true. I do like the modular setup. I like the randomized tiles. I like the fact that the tools you use are the same, except for some randomized ones at the bottom. The composition of the characters you're playing as changes things up a bit. It's a very interesting game. It scales well with number of players. If you're playing solo, you can get Friday as a helper, you can get the dog as a helper, but still not going to make it easy. Let's change gears, because I think your conversation about difficulty has a very interesting component with Spirit Island. Spirit Island, I've said it before, I'll say it again, is my favorite game of all time. I don't really like co-ops all that much. It's just that Spirit Island is so good. It's thematic. It's very customizably difficult, which is something that you just talked about. You don't have to play the hardest scenario. You don't have to play against the hardest opponent. If you just want to open the box, play a game, you are able to just have an experience playing as that essence that's, killing colonial settlers, which is always fun.
Exactly, yeah. Robinson Crusoe, the game is hard. With Spirit Island, the game doesn't have to be hard. You can play difficult scenarios. You can, ratchet that up. But if you're an experienced player that's playing with somebody who's new, maybe you don't want to do a difficult scenario, but you can still play a difficult spirit. So there's multiple different ways to adjust the difficulty, even if you've got a lot of experience difference with the players.
One of the things that Spirit Island has done more recently that I think puts it above a lot of other games of its weight is come out with a new starter set that's widely available at a much cheaper cost at a big box store like Target. Spirit Island Horizons is the perfect entry point. It takes away a lot of the plastic and turns it into cardboard, which reduces the cost. It also reduces the size. It also introduces 5 really good spirits. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the spirits in Horizons are a better starting point than the initial, 8 in the main box.
Yeah.
Starting out with River Surges and Sunlight, that was my favorite starting place. Lightning Bird, I can't remember the name.
What's the one, the cat one that
Sunbright Whirlwind.
Emerald
like
always
that.
plays, yeah.
Sunbright Whirlwind, I think it's called. We call it, Wind Cat, right?
And that's another thing. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of them. There's like 50 or more different spirits. Maybe not quite that many. I don't know. It seems like that many.
These names correctly, though.
There's so many of them. So, there's lots of different techniques or strategies that you can choose if you want to play maybe more of an aggressive type of spirit, or if you want to do more of a kind of a support role. There's a spirit for that at every single difficulty level. I've never played Spirit Island solo, but I think I would like it less than cooperative, which is a weird thing for me to say. And the reason for that is, to me, one of the most interesting things about it is how the different spirits can coordinate and build off of each other or assist each other, right? If you're playing the Ocean's
Hungry
Grasp, right? Mm-hmm. That makes the oceans dangerous to the colonizers, to the settlers. So then if your teammate is playing as someone that's able to push colonizers into the water, where maybe that wouldn't be beneficial without Ocean's Hungry Grasp, but now it is, it's a really cool coordination.
Sunbright Whirlwind is a control spirit. They push and pull things constantly. If someone plays as Sunbright Whirlwind and then you play as Ocean's Hungry Grasp, then they can just push all of the bad guys into the ocean, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
Really love that portion of the game. And, good Spirit Island players, I would not call myself a good Spirit Island player. Good Spirit Island players can play at super high difficulty. Sometimes with double adversaries, that's not why I play games. That sounds horrible. There are people who two-hand this. I've never enjoyed two-handing any game, any cooperative game that I've ever played. I've never enjoyed two-handing a game.
You've touched on a pain point for me. I had my coworker Teal and his partner came over a while ago, and we played Slay the Spire, but they only had time for the first 2 acts. But Mint and I wanted to finish it, so we each played 2 of the characters in Slay the Spire for the 3rd act. The 3rd act alone took us like more time than the first 2 combined, and we ended up doing it and playing it all the way through, and it took us like 5.5 hours.
That sounds miserable.
It was not fun. Like, I was really, because I wanted to finish it, but it was not fun.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound fun. And that's the brain burn aspect. There are people who love the brain burn, and that's awesome. That's awesome. I like killing colonials that are trying to take over this island. I like that aspect of it, so I like to play as powerful spirits. I don't think I venture into the very high at all. There's so many different ways you never play the same game twice. It's just fantastic. I could go on and talk about Spirit Island for such a long time, but we have to talk about the cons of both.
Yes.
So I'll start with the cons of Spirit Island. Sometimes the brain burn is just too much, and it's just I'm not in the mood for this. I don't want to do this, and usually I don't even open the box if that's not what I'm looking for. It very rarely does it feel like a casual experience to play Spirit Island.
I can understand that. I don't actually have a lot of cons for Spirit Island. It's cooperative, not my favorite type of game, but I won't count that against the game. The game is great. I think that probably my main issue that I have with it runs into the duration at higher player counts. I find that it can get really long, and maybe that, combined with the brain burn that you get from playing, is just almost exhausting to me sometimes.
Agreed. As far as Robinson Crusoe is concerned, if you don't walk into that with the correct attitude, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yes, absolutely. I know I've said it multiple times. It's tough. It really is difficult. And if you get a bad draw or an inopportune event or something, it really can impact the entire game.
It's true. Depending on the scenario, especially, I think we started the King Kong one, and after like the 4th turn, we just looked at each other. We're like, "There's no way we can do this. Let's give up now."
Yeah, it's a great game. It really is cool. Like the theme is cool. It's very well thought out as well.
Sometimes you have to focus on preparing and taking your lumps in the early games so that you have the facilities to exist in the later game. Not building the medicine, not a good idea, especially when you get poisoned and the only thing that will cure it is the medicine. But if you don't, if you build the medicine, then you can't make the shelter, and if you don't make the shelter, then the storm comes and it gets all your food, and oh my goodness, It's a very difficult game that has some real smacks in the face if you're not prepared for it, which is why you should play it knowing what you're getting into. So Robinson Crusoe versus Spirit Island. Doesn't sound like it's too much of a competition. I am definitely choosing Spirit Island. If I had to keep one, that would be it.
You know, it's actually a difficult choice for me. I think I like the theme of Robinson Crusoe more. The art is top-notch on both of them.
Yeah.
I do think I also give the edge to Spirit Island for the sole fact that while the game can be very difficult, you don't have to have it be difficult. It can be a relaxing, easy, fun time with new players, where you as an experienced player can still have a challenge if you want it.
I agree.
So that was the board game standoff between Robinson Crusoe and Spirit Island. Now we're going to move on to our main topic, digital implementations of board games. I have a lot of thoughts about this. Some of them are good, some of them are not as good, but Blue, I want to get your take on it.
Okay. I started playing board games probably around 2012. And there was not, I should say, I did not have a lot of friends that were into the kind of games that I wanted to play. Some of the first ones I played were Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, which, if you've ever played Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, is an extraordinarily long game. We had like 6 people playing. It was daunting to say the least. We played Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition. I mean, these were games I got to experience that made me want to find more of the hobby. Then Catan came. And Settlers of Catan was a game that I could find people that wanted to play it. I started playing it with my little group of friends. I taught it to them, and it became a staple. But more often than not, it was that I didn't really have anybody to play with, and some of these games, I didn't have the money to purchase them for myself. And the first game I really vividly remember, besides something like Carcassonne, the first game that I got digitally where I learned the game was Agricola. It was on iOS, and I had an iPhone at that time. It was an iPhone 3GS, and I had Agricola on that phone. I learned how to play it. I, looked up strategy, and I learned how to be good at that game, and I only had the AI to play against. I'm sure I could have gotten online. I've never been an online gamer. My girlfriend I had at the time learned the game, but not in a way that she could be competitive, and that's fine, but she would play it with me on the iPad that we had, because we had an iPad as well. That game was a digital implementation, and it taught me how to play the game. Caelus was another one that I had on there. Stone Age was another one. These are old implementations that didn't look great, but were very functional and allowed some kind of AI interpretation. Fast forward to today. Oh my goodness. The quality of digital board games has gone off the charts. We talked about Root earlier. There's 3D modeling for all the different things. There's animations that aren't just ripped from the board game. These are new assets that are put in. The other one I played recently was Concordia. That app is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. I'm trying to think. I know Direwolf does a lot of these digital implementations. I think they did the Root one, and I think they did Concordia as well. The quality with which we now have these games that people can play online with each other is fantastic.
Yes, I completely understand and can empathize to a point with your not having people to play with. I've certainly been there as well. The problem that I have, and this is probably the root of all of the other probably things I'll talk about, is I play board games to get together with my friends and have a social interaction with them. Not saying you can't have a social interaction online, but it's not the same to me personally than being at the table and ordering food and having a good time and making jokes. I just don't get that same feeling when I play a digital game.
Opening up a Discord chat and having that open with a voice chat, it doesn't feel the same.
It's not the same. And so that's probably the absolute core of the problem or the issue I have. That being said, I have multiple digital implementations of games myself. I play some of them quite frequently. I probably the one I play the most is Race for the Galaxy, which is super great. It doesn't have all of the expansions on the digital version, but it has the ones that I like at least.
It's a good version of the game, too.
It is. Yeah, it really is. I have the Wingspan one. I have the newest one I think that I bought was Dune Imperium. And it's a really, really good version of the game. It works perfectly. It's not Uprising. It's the first Dune Imperium. It works really good. Again, I'm just missing that social aspect of what I look for in board games.
Can you imagine playing modern art on a digital game like that with people online? There's so many things you look for in those like type bidding games that I feel like it would be just transactional.
Yeah, I agree. I think that type of game would be difficult. But another type of game that I feel like would be difficult would be a hidden role game or something like that. I have a question for you. Where does a digital implementation of a board game just become a video game? Like, is there a line where you're like, now it's just a video game? Now I'm just playing it stopped being a board game at this point.
It's an interesting question. I feel like I feel like the space for entertainment has become so vast that there are video games, so to speak, video games that just feel like board games. Balatro is the newest one that is like, hey, it's just a deck builder, right?
Slay the Spire.
Slay the Spire, Slay the Spire came out long after Dominion, and that's what inspired the creators. I watched a little mini documentary about Slay the Spire. The video game industry is being influenced by the board game industry, and vice versa. So to say that something that becomes digital stops being a board game, it feels like there's so many video games you could call board games in digital form. I don't know that I have any versions of games on my phone that I have, or on the computer, that I would say are no longer board games. Root doesn't feel like a board game on the digital version. It feels like a video game, but it's exactly the same mechanics as the board game, which I really, really like.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I think you're right. The line has definitely blurred in recent years, and there's no distinct, this is a board game, this is a video game. And so long as whoever the players are having a good time and they get the whatever social aspect or out of it, that's fantastic, and that's the goal. It's just not for me.
Now I gotta ask you, have you played Board Game Arena or Tabletop Simulator?
I have a Board Game Arena account, and I've never played it. I've only ever done like the standalone app implementations of games.
I'm very interested to hear what you would have to say if you spent some time on there, because it is very much like having a bunch, like a really good implementations of games that are digital that you can play with other people.
So I will say, when I signed up for Board Game Arena and I went on there, the amount of games was impressive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of board game apps or individual standalone games. This dwarfed that by tenfold, maybe, that I was familiar with and interested in playing. So that was super cool. I just never got around to doing it. I know that you and Sharphair, the Ultimate Blood Bowl champion, play digital implementation sometimes, but I don't know. It's just not. I just haven't done it.
Sure. As it stands, I have no problem with digital versions of board games. Whatever brings more people into the hobby, the better it is. If people want to play Wingspan on their phones, and then at a hangout, they're like, "Oh, I've been playing this game on my phone called Wingspan. That's like a real board game, right?" And you go, "Yeah, it is." And then you can bring it out and play it with them. Like that's a cool thing.
I completely agree. I think that anything that brings people joy and they have a good time, that's fantastic. I feel like it's lacking that social aspect for me.
Definitely. No, I completely understand. That's going to do it for our main topic for this week. And now we go on to the next segment. Red, you want to say it with me?
Absolutely.
Does it fart? Today's game I'm very excited about because it's a game that you picked up and that I bought from you. This is Space Hulk 4th edition by Games Workshop.
Tell me, Blue.
Hold on, I gotta redo it.
No, tell me, Blue. Are those miniatures on the sprue still?
Oh, 100% they are.
We gotta play this game.
This is Space Hulk 4th edition by Richard Hallowell by Games Workshop.
I adore Space Hulk Death Angel the card game.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. We've never won. I've never won, at least. Perhaps you have. So
Twice.
difficult.
Yeah.
I want to play this game so badly.
Oh, this game is way different.
I don't care. I want to play it.
This is one of the coolest 2-player skirmish games. It is so punishingly difficult, but it's so much fun. I love Space Hulk. Quiet in the studio, and we're going to find out, does it fart? That's ridiculous.
My goodness, yeah.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
I think we can both say, hands down, that's the best Boxfart we've had.
That prolonged. That was the equivalent of a box that just ate a bunch of Brussels sprouts.
I was going to say, it's stinky in here now.
I'm giving this a 5. This has got to be 5 out of 5. If that's not 5 out of 5, I don't know what is.
Not to be outdone, it's a 5.1 out of 5.
No, you can't do that.
I can do it.
I told you we said 5 stars was the maximum.
Yeah, exactly. It is the maximum.
You
this is a
can't give it
5.1.
5.1. No, I will take a stand. This podcast has integrity. You will not go above our star rating system.
Absolutely. I won't. 5.1 out of 5.
No, you didn't. With an average of 5.05, we have our best Boxfart. I'm so proud of that one.
This has been Boxfart, episode 4. I've been Red.
I've been Blue.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Boxfart podcast. If you'd like to contact either Red or Blue, feel free to send an email to redblueboxfart, all one word, @gmail.com. If you feel so inclined, leave a review for us on the platform of your choice. And always remember, a piece laid is a piece played. Unless you didn't really mean to play it, in which case, just go ahead and chill out, man. It's a friendly game.